And welcome back. We are now going to get ready to merge some vertices in order to make points with our shape. We saw a little bit of manipulation last time, but we're going to learn how to merge vertices to really truly create points here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and on my shape here, let's go ahead and switch this on over to edit mode. And what I want to do is I just want to select these top vertices here. And the easiest way to do that, just to make sure nothing else is selected, I can, of course, press A to select all. If I do Alt-A, that will deselect everything, and then you can just click and drag over these 4 vertices. And you'll notice it will select all 4 of these here. And that's also, you notice I am in vertice mode here. I want to make sure I'm selecting. Excellent. And then what I want to do is scale these down to 0. So I'm going to scale all these vertices down to 0. So I'm going to press the shortcut S, and then I'm going to press 0 on my keyboard. And you'll see that it brings them into a point. So again, press S, 0, and we can click off, and we have a point here. Now, key thing to note is that this is not all 4 vertices merged. Instead, there are really 4 vertices occupying the same space. If I were to grab this and start pulling these vertices out here, you will find that these vertices are each individually moving within different zones. All right, so that is a little bit of a thing to kind of keep in mind here as we start moving through this. So I have to make sure that as I work with these, that I'm not trying to think that, oh, I want to do these, individually or as one, because there are different times when you want to do individually. You might say, oh, I'm going to put these together and then I want to merge it out into a new shape or new form, or there might be times, I do want to make this into a point. And just to demonstrate my point here, if I go ahead and select just one of these vertices here, you can see I have just one, because you can see I only have one orange line now. If I press the G key here, I can pull this out and you can see it's still acting as one individual vertex. So, and I of course can come back here, I can grab another vertex, I can pull that one out. So you can start seeing how we can start using this to really start getting unique geometries and different shapes here, just by putting those in together. However, that's not what we're looking to do here. So we're just going to press Control Z to get this back and get it back to a point where I have all 4 of these highlighted. Now, one thing I want to point out, if for some reason, if you're having trouble getting back to being able to select these multiple sides here, or maybe you came in here and you clicked on something and you only have one side selected, and it's like, oh, I need to get back to getting these all selected, and, well, rather than just pressing Control Z and undoing work you might have done, if I want to come here and select these, you notice if I click and drag over these, it's not grabbing the individual pieces. And that's because we're working with the geometries that are kind of stacked on top of one another. So there's 2 ways we can do this. One, we can go into wireframe mode and we can come here and select all these and it'll grab all of them there. The other option is, if we notice right next to it, we have a toggle mode that we can click on that too. So if I click there and just do that one, you can see we can also grab it there too. So we have a few options here. This one can be really handy because sometimes if you're in wireframe mode, it can be a little bit more difficult to see exactly what you're grabbing because again, you're just looking at the wireframe of it. Whereas here we kind of still see some semblance of that shading. All right, so now we're at the point where we can merge these vertices together. And if we go up to our vertex menu up here, we of course have options in here where we can work around with these. And so we can kind of work with different pieces here. And you notice we have different things available to us. The most important though thing, if there's a shortcut actually, we can do this. So just in this shape here, make sure we go back, make sure we can take this mode off here. All right, we are now at the point we are ready to merge these together. And you might say, well, where can I find that merging piece here? Where can I look for those different pieces here? And of course, we get different menus and options and everything that we can navigate through. Or we can just use our keyboard shortcut and just press M. M is for merge. And you see we have a couple different distances. We have at center, at cursor, collapse, and by distance. And what we want to do is kind of take these points here and merge them at center. And if we do that, you'll see that it becomes one solid point now. I can't no longer click these individual pieces here. It all is one vertex. Now, one thing I do want to show out, and it's kind of a little bit of a shortcut here. If I had started here with a cube like I had first started here, and we went back into edit mode here, and we said, you know what, we want to go ahead and merge these down. We want to get this so this top shape here is all going to kind of behave in the same manner. So we can grab this here, do this our top selection, and we press the M key. we can have a very similar thing here. So we can do at center, and again, you'll see that we get the same result. So both ways are valid ways of doing it. You can scale it and then merge them in, or once it's merged, then once I have that, I then have the option to create these as a single vertex. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can do a couple more cool things with this. What I want to do first is I want to grab my whole shape here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it. Let's do GZ, and I'm going to move that up once just so that is now above my plane here. And let's actually go ahead and rename this from cube into more of a pyramid, because that's really what we more have here. And so now we have this shape here. All right, let's go ahead and get ready to add ourselves in our shape. Let's go ahead and add a cube, and you can see we have a cube that is now around our pyramid here. And let's go ahead and make sure that is underneath. So I'm just going to go ahead and shift that in the downward direction here. So Z of -1. There we go. And so we now have the pyramid is now sitting on top of that cube. Now, one thing I want to show you, if as we start getting these objects more complex, if I want to grab pieces of this object, so I'm just going to deselect this real quick, and I, let's say, want to grab pieces of this. Well, one thing I can do is I can go back to my face select here. I can press the face. Let's press the L key, and you'll notice it'll grab the entire face there. All right, notice it didn't grab the top shape here because of that. Even though those vertices and those edges are sharing sides, they are not part of that shape. They're part of this pyramid that we had made previously. And if I come up here and press L again, you can see how we can grab different pieces here. And I can just click and hold to, kind of grab different pieces of this, which is pretty handy if you think about it. All right, so that is another little trick there, but let's go ahead and see what else can we do here with this shape now. Well, what about if we wanted this to be treated as one object? We say, we want this to be one thing. Well, let's just select everything. Let's use our merge command again. And we have this by distance here, all right? So by distance is going to very much effectively look to see if the distance is 0 between two vertices, and it will merge them if they are. So if I go ahead and click by distance here, all right, this should now effectively treat these corners here as one vertex. Instead of saying like, hey, this is a vertex with another vertex thing on top of it, we now only have one vertex. And if I go over to vertex select, I can click that and you can see that it is highlighting across both shapes here. Rather than simply just saying, oh, this is just a vertex that belongs to the cube or a vertex that belongs to the pyramid, because we merged that by a distance, you can see that it is now treating that as a vertex belonging to the whole shape. All right, so we have here a nice shape that we can manipulate, but what else could we make? Well, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a challenge here. I'm going to help you get started on it, but I'm going to leave you with a bit of a challenge to try and see if you can create something similar to this, but with a cylinder and a sphere. So I'm just going to go ahead and, again, get you kind of started here. The key thing you're going to need to do is that we're going to need to add in first a UV sphere, and I'm just going to go ahead and move this guy right here. Let's go ahead and get him out of this shape here, because otherwise it's going to be hard to see him. And we are also going to need, of course, add in a cylinder. Well, let's get that sphere out of there. So I'm just going to grab him. I'm just going to move him on out. And for our purposes, if we look at this sphere here, when we look at him, if I were to go and select this sphere and I were to work with him, one thing you'll notice is that it's in a lot of different segments here. All right, and that's because this sphere has been added with a lot of regions. So this is a 32 region sphere. So if we look at this shape here, we can see if we actually were to, if I bring in a new one just so you see, when we add the UV sphere, we can choose how many segments we want this to have. So for example, if I key this down to 16, we will make it a 16 segment sphere. And if I go ahead and let's just move him on out, I'm going to put him over here just so you can see in comparison. We have a lot less regions here in a 16 versus a 32. And if I go ahead and add in a cylinder, like I said I was going to, we again can choose to control this. So here's my cylinder with 32 sections. So if I go ahead and move him out, you'll see that it has as many sections effectively as that sphere. Or if I were to add another one, let's show this as a 16. Again, you'll see that these sections are going to line up very similar to what we have going on with this sphere. So the challenge I'm going to leave you with is I want you to go ahead and see if you can find a way to put this cylinder and sphere together and merge their vertices so effectively you're making a silo. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to show you mine here at the end. I'm just going to make a quick one of this stacked on, but I'm going to leave some of that challenge work to you of how to merge these two shapes together. All right, and so just here's my finished product. So you can see I have the two cylinders with the spheres on top of them, and I went ahead and merged my vertices here by distance so we can have a nice clean presentation here, and we're not having independent vertices. And this is a nice good wrap up. Obviously I could add more structures to this. I could really add some detail and stuff like that, and I challenge you to go ahead and do that yourself to add some detail here to these objects. And again, you could do a 32, you can do a 16. You can see the differences when we start adding in more levels of detail here between the 32 and the 16. But that's where we're going to leave it right here for today. And when we come back next time, we can dive in even further with how we can manipulate these shapes.